Thank you. Good afternoon. The Senate Committee on Natural Resources will now come to order. Members and presenters, please remember to mute your microphone when you are not speaking. At this time, will our secretary please proceed to call the roll?
Senator Brooks. Senator Goycochea.
Here.
Okay, good, thank you. Senator Goycochea.
Here.
Senator Hansen.
Here.
Senator Scheibel. Chair Donate.
And I am here. Let the record reflect that Senator Scheibel is excused. She's finishing a meeting and she'll be able to join us later today. So thank you. Welcome everyone to the Senate Committee on Natural Resources. Now, for anyone who has not participated in these virtual legislative meetings yet, I will go ahead and quickly explain how our virtual committee meetings are being conducted for the 2021 legislative session. As you know, the legislative building is closed to the public right now, so all committee meetings will be held virtually, meaning that committee staff, members, and everyone else will have to participate either through Zoom, video conference, or by telephone. However, there are various ways that members of the public can engage with us and participate in this process. As in previous sessions, all committee-related information is available on the Nevada Electronic Legislative Information System, commonly referred to as NELIS, which is accessible to by the legislature's website. There are 4 ways that you can engage with this committee. You can either register to participate in a committee meeting through the NELIS system, which places you in line to testify on a bill. You can submit written testimony to the committee's email address or fax number listed on the agenda. You can share your opinion via the legislature's opinion application on NELIS, or you can simply view the committee meetings online through NELIS or on the legislature's YouTube channel. To testify on a bill or provide public comment during the 2021 legislative session, members of the public must first register for the meeting that you would like to participate in. Committee meetings are listed in several places on NELIS. To register, simply click on the participate button near the meeting date and time, and then fill out the required information. Once your information is submitted, you will receive a confirmation as to how to access the phone number and meeting ID. But just to note that even if you got the meeting registration and it is required to participate, it does not guarantee you a spot to speak. And similar to other sessions, testimony and public comment may be limited due to time restrictions, which will apply today. When you are on the phone line, please pay attention to which bill is being considered and what we are considering at the time. And BPS will let you know what keys to press to raise your hand and unmute yourself. BPS staff will call on you to speak by the last 3 digits of your phone number. Detailed instructions on participating in committee meetings are available on the help page listed at the banner on NELIS. And if you ever need any assistance with these processes, or if you'd like to receive electronic notification of the committee's agendas and minutes, always feel free to please contact our committee manager at the committee email listed on the agenda. Today, we're going to be going out of order. We were planning to start with the work session, but we're going to go ahead and move on to the hearing on SB 155. At this time, I will go ahead and open the hearing on SB 155. This measure revises provisions relating to the Division of Water Resources of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I believe we have a really good guest, and it's an honor to introduce former Assemblywoman Heidi Swank, who will present the Legislative Committee on Public Lands to introduce the bill and the presenter. So, Dr. Swank, whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's good to be in Nevada. So for the record, I'm Heidi Swank, and I served as the Vice Chair of the Legislative Committee on Public Lands last interim, and I'm here to present Senate Bill 155 for your consideration. The idea for this bill was recommended to the Public Lands Committee by the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources last summer, and the measure was subsequently approved during a work session at the committee's final meeting on September 22nd. So Senate Bill 155 replaces the state engineer as the administrative head of the Division of Water Resources and expands the qualifications of the position to include experience and competency in water resource management and conservation, as well as a demonstrated ability to administer a major public agency. So according to the information and testimony provided DCNR, holding a professional engineering license known as a PE as the sole requirement to serve as state engineer and administrator of the Division of Water Resources has become outdated. While a PE is still a key professional qualification for the position, other technical expertise is now equally important for this role. The engineering aspect of water management has diminished, whereas other science and technical specialties such as hydrology and geology are now the main technical challenges for responsible water management in Nevada. Additionally, the Nevada Division of Water Resources spends a majority of time focused on how best to manage Nevada's limited water resources and resolving water use conflicts through the regulatory process and in the courts. Therefore, the engineering component of performing as the Nevada Division of Water Resources Administrator is now just one of many potential professional qualifications that are needed to effectively manage Nevada's water resources. An effective Division of Water Resources Administrator must now also possess such abilities as management and policy. There's also a precedent for redefining the qualifications of administrators of certain state agencies. So, for example, in 2017, the legislature approved Assembly Bill 41, which similarly changed and expanded the qualifications of several administrators, including the administrator of the State Public Works Division. The primary qualification of the Administrator of Public Works was expanded beyond a professional engineering license to include a licensed architect. To ensure that the division is served by an engineer when the administrator holds other qualifications, the Deputy Administrator of Professional Services must be a licensed professional engineer. So it may not be the head administrator, but the deputy would hold that license. So Senate Bill 155 contains a similar requirement in subsection 2 of section 5, which requires that if the administrator of the Division of Water Resources is not a licensed engineer, then the deputy administrator must hold a professional engineering license, thus making sure that that experience that we've known as part of the leadership of the Division of Water Resources is retained there. So that concludes my remarks for now. I would like to have Bradley Kroll, the Director of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, walk you through the bill and provide additional detail. And I just want to thank the committee for hearing this bill and for giving me a chance to participate. And it's good to see some friendly faces.
Thank you, Dr. Swank, and thank you, Chair Donate, for holding this hearing today. I'm assuming you can hear me all right. For the record, my name is Bradley Kroll. I'm the Director of the Nevada Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I'd like to thank the committee for bringing forward SB 155, a bipartisan measure sponsored by the Interim Public Lands Committee. Specifically, I'd like to express my appreciation to Senators Hansen and Brooks, who served on the interim committee and supported advancing this measure as a BDR. I appreciate being joined today to introduce SB 155 by Ms. Heidi Swank, as we all know, the former chair of the Assembly Natural Resources Committee and a member of the Interim Public Lands Committee this past interim when the BDR concept was approved. I'd like to note that Ms. Swank's successor as chair of the Assembly Natural Resources Committee, Assemblyman Howard Watts, also supported this BDR concept as a member of the interim committee. With that, I will briefly describe the content of SB 155 for the committee and share some quick context and background for why this legislation is necessary. As many of us are already aware, the state engineer serves as the administrator of the Division of Water Resources, one of the longest standing divisions within the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Indeed, when the legislature created the department in 1957, the state engineer at that time, Hugh Schamberger, became the first director of the newly established department. Since this time, the Division of Water Resources has been a key agency within the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, while the role and responsibilities of the state engineer has become increasingly broad and more complex. SB 155 is a recognition of how the Division of Water Resources has evolved over time. As Nevada's population has grown and our economy expanded, the responsible management of our state's water resources has become increasingly important, and therefore the importance of having the most qualified candidate serve as administrator of the Division of Water Resources is paramount. SB 155 will help achieve this critical goal while preserving the integrity of the division as a balanced, neutral authority for managing Nevada's water resources. Section 5 of SB 155 contains the key changes to existing statute by enacting the following. 1, revises the qualifications for the executive head of the Division of Water Resources to require that the administrator, 1, be experienced and competent in water resource management and conservation, have a demonstrated ability to administer a major public agency, and with limited exception, be a licensed professional engineer with skill and experience in water-related engineering. Further, SB 155 provides that the person appointed as the administrator is not required to be a licensed professional engineer if, and only if, a deputy administrator of the division is a licensed professional engineer with skill and experience in water-related engineering, or the person has the theoretical knowledge, practical experience, and technical skill for the position. These proposed changes will help expand the pool of qualified applicants to serve as administrator of the Division of Water Resources, and also align Nevada statutes more closely with many of our Western neighbors, including such states as Utah and Arizona, which face similar water resource challenges to Nevada. Nevada is fortunate to have had former state engineers like Jason King and our current state engineer and division administrator, Adam Sullivan, who possess the unique combination of skills in addition to being licensed professional engineers necessary to run this critical state agency. But as we look ahead, finding individuals with such unique skill sets will become ever more challenging. The Division of Water Resources has grown from a staff of 11 engineers in 1957 to a staff of 91 today, comprised of engineers, hydrologists, water planners, hearing officers, water rights specialists, GIS experts, and more. And even this level of staffing and breadth of professional expertise is insufficient to keep up with today's challenges and demands related to managing water resources in the driest state in the nation. I'm certain the committee will hear lots of opposition today to SB 155 from many accomplished individuals who have worked in the field of water resources for decades. However, I strongly encourage the committee to adopt a contemporary and forward-looking perspective when considering this legislation. For the benefit of our great state and our precious water resources, which belong to all Nevadans, it is imperative to have a Division of Water Resources comprised of and led by the best possible professionals that can aptly navigate and the complex water resource challenges Nevada faces today and will continue to face long into the future. Again, I commend the Interim Public Lands Committee for its bipartisan sponsorship of SB 155, and I would be happy to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Crowell and Dr. Swank, for your presentations. I know there are some questions from my committee members, so let's go ahead and begin with them. Any immediate thoughts or questions? Senator Goycochea, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I guess it's probably have to note that there were a couple of us that did sit on the Interim Public Lands Committee that did not support this measure. I guess my question is to Director Crowell, I fail to see the advantage of, we know we've got at least a dozen engineers serving under the state engineer today, so it's not hard for an administrator to meet the qualifications of having a deputy who is an engineer, a professional engineer. I guess I'm just concerned why we would make the change now, given the problems that are in front of us. And I've known a lot of state engineers in my career, all very good people, and I guess I'm afraid to admit to myself then that there are no longer Hugh Ritchies and Roland Westergaards and Mike Turnipseeds available out there.
Well, Senator Goycochea, thank you for the question. Again, Brad Kroll, Director of DCNR for the record. I think the challenges we face today are exactly the reason we need to make these changes. And, as Ms. Swank highlighted, the main duties of the division administrator, state engineer, are not engineering these days. They were back in the day when those technical challenges were the most pressing and important skills to have in the division. But today it's much more about water planning. Unfortunately, it's also much more about managing and responding to litigation. And so the breadth of management challenges the administrator has is well beyond just the field of engineering. And I wish I could say that we have a bunch of uniquely highly skilled engineers that are not just good engineers, but good at all these other fields, clamoring to be the state engineer, but it's simply not the case. And this bill just slightly opens the qualifications up a little bit to provide for other technical expertise without any slippery slope, and there's no goal to make it a slippery slope. As I mentioned in the interim committee, it would be a shame if a qualified head of a division of water resources from another state were willing to come to Nevada and serve as our state engineer, but will be disqualified because they're not a professional engineer. So we're just looking to open that up a little bit and provide some flexibility so we can have the best person in there managing what is arguably Nevada's most precious resource.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Goicoechea. Senator Brooks or Senator Hansen, do you guys have any questions? Seeing none, I have just a quick question for Director Crowell. Can you talk to me more about recruitment for this position and some of the difficulties that you've had with filling the role? Perhaps maybe you can talk about maybe some of the confronted challenges with compensation. I know it's not going to be addressed in this bill, but maybe the challenges with compensation compared to other states and industries.
Chair Donate, I appreciate the question. Again, Brad Kroll for the record. Historically, without exception, the state engineer and the head of the division has come up through the ranks within the division to serve as the division head. And that has worked very well over the years, but has become more challenging and will become more challenging going forward for a variety of reasons. One is what you mentioned about salary adequacy. I can make an argument that the state engineer is one of if not the hardest job in state government, but its pay is not nearly commensurate with what public employees in city or county governments get paid, and it's certainly not even close to what one would get paid in the engineering field working on the outside in the private sector. And it would be a challenge to find someone who is willing to come in and serve in this position at that salary that is doing it that has all the right skills and is doing it for all the right reasons. And that's what I worry about the most is finding someone who's going to be neutral and balanced with the right skills to do this job. We've been fortunate for a long time, but that's not necessarily going to hold true going forward. And I don't want to artificially constrain ourselves or have one hand tied behind our back.
Thank you, sir. And do you have a timeline perspective on when, I know we have an acting state engineer right now. Do you have a timeline perspective as to when that will be filled?
My hope is to do so as expeditiously as possible as soon as this legislative session ends.
Thank you, sir. Any questions before we move to Senator Goicoechea?
Thank you for the second time, Chair Donati. Director Crowell, I guess I'm just concerned mostly because, again, clearly they don't have to be an engineer given the makeup of the department today. And I'm just concerned that if you end up with, say, an attorney or even an accountant that's actually named the administrator, they'll tend to move more towards their forte. And in most cases, if you're an attorney, then you're going to start looking at holes in it and looking for the litigation. The same thing with if you were an accountant, you're more tend to be looking at fees, funding, and along those lines. The state engineer's office is about one thing: water. And it's your job as a director to cover some of those other venues. Again, I'm really concerned as I look at some of the language in the bill, and when the administrator and the administrator of the division, that's not good water science. Thank you.
Senator Goicoechea, I appreciate the question and the expression of concern. Brad Kroll for the record. I do not believe, as this bill is written, that a lawyer would qualify to serve in this position. It is more geared towards, say, a hydrologist or a geologist that doesn't have a PE, professional engineering license, to be eligible and qualified. If there's an interest in tightening up the language to ensure that, I'd be happy to consider it, because it is not what we're trying to accomplish here, nor are we trying to create some unintentional slippery slope in that direction.
Well, thank you. And, I know I'm not the only one that shares those concerns, Director Powell, that maybe this is going to be too big an expansion. Maybe if we did have it narrowed down to where, if you're talking a hydrologist versus, a professional engineer, that's one thing. But again, that's not what the bill says. You could truly be a conservationist and be the head of water resources, the way this bill is drafted, as long as you had a deputy that was a professional engineer under you.
Senator, I think we share the same goal, so I'd be happy to work with you on tightening up the language to achieve that and make sure that there's good sideboards on making sure that the prospective administrator has the right skill set and not one that would be perverse, so to speak, in the administration of our water law.
Thank you, but we seem to forget, and Ms. Swank, I know you're familiar with this too, the long meetings we have as we try and tighten up some of these sideboards in the meetings, but I do appreciate that, Mr. Crowell, and it's good to see you, Ms. Swank.
Director Crowell, I have another quick question, if you can help me address this. Can you give us more on the insight from some of the day-to-day responsibilities that a state engineer would have? For instance, like, is the state engineer like the final decision maker for like really robust engineering projects, and they should have like a contextual knowledge on as to what's happening? Or would we probably say that a lot of their responsibilities are more on the administrative side, where they're doing more like the hiring, the strategic process of what's going to move forward? Like, can you give us more insight on how that looks for the state engineer's office?
Thank you, Chair Donate. For the record, this is Brad Kroll. Yes, the primary responsibilities of the division administrator is to do exactly that, administer the division, more so than perform as engineering duties. There's a wealth of knowledge and engineering expertise within the division that supports the head of the division. Now, the administrator should be conversant in engineering terms and technology and things of that nature, but they're not doing the hardcore, in-depth engineering work on a daily basis. What they're doing is managing staff, managing budgets, working through complex dynamics in terms of administering the law, responding to courts, managing adjudications and hearings on water rights. And so you really need a experienced manager first and foremost. It's the same reason why the Division of Environmental Protection, the biggest division within the department, there's a lot of engineering context to environmental management, but it is not required. That position is not required to be an engineer. Similarly, the department as a whole, at one point, the position as department director was required to be an engineer, and that was removed in 1977.
Thank you, Director Call. So would it be fair to say that, for instance, if a water rights lawyer were to step into this state engineer role, and there was a very concrete water engineering problem that wasn't really within their past expertise, that they would they would use the guidance from one of their deputy administrators to help craft what the response would be? Would that be a fair assessment of a situation that could possibly happen?
It is conceivable. Again, the language related to the skill set and requirements for serving as the administrator of the division is the language is intended to just broaden it for other technical areas of expertise. not to open it up to, say, a lawyer. And if the administrator has a PhD in geology, but they're not a professional engineer, then it would be required that one of their deputies is a professional engineer. So it's a little bit of a belt and suspenders there within the technical expertise needed. It's not intended to provide an opening for a lawyer to serve as the division administrator.
Thank you, Director Carl. That's the clarification that I needed. Any other questions? Senator Brooks, do you have anything?
I'll stop for now. It sounds like we've got some long nights in front of us. Thank you.
Senator Brooks, did you?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Donati. And not necessarily a question. I just wanted to say hello to former Assemblywoman Swank, and thank you for presenting this bill and all the way from the other side of the country.
Thank you, Senator. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think I don't see any questions unless if Vice Chair Scheibel joins us later, and maybe we can address her questions as well, or we can try doing it offline. But let's go ahead and at this point in time, seeing that there are no more questions from the committee members, let's go ahead and proceed with testimony. So as a reminder, we will be limiting all testifiers to 2 minutes each. Testifiers are encouraged to summarize their positions and submit more comprehensive testimony in writing. Just as a reminder, I will limit each section, support, opposition, and neutral to 30 minutes, and I will do my best to monitor the time. So please keep it to 2 minutes each, just for fairness and transparency for everyone. So VPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to provide support testimony for SB 155?
Thank you so much, Chair. To testify in support on Senate Bill 155, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, we are on support testimony on Senate Bill 155. Please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Let's wait a few more seconds just to make sure that we capture everyone in case if there's a lag.
Certainly, Chair. Thank you. If you have recently joined the call, we are currently on support testimony on Senate Bill 155. Please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Thank you, VPS. Let's go ahead and move with testimony in opposition.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 155, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 153. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Reed Cousins. That is spelled R-E-E-D-C-O-Z-E-N-S. Once again, Reed Cousins for the record. Thank you, Chair Donate. My name is Reed Cousins. I'm a professional engineer and licensed Nevada water rights surveyor here in Carson City, and I am opposed to SB 155 and believe it is tremendously important to keep our state's most precious resource under a professional engineer's guidance. Water is uniquely challenging to regulate. It takes many specialties working together to make our systems work. Hydrologists and hydrogeologists provide scientific insight into complex water systems. Attorneys litigate disputes, but it is the professional engineer that is called upon to work within these ever-evolving frameworks while simultaneously balancing the unique operational needs of cities, counties, improvement districts, developers, public utilities, mining companies, individuals, ranchers, farmers, and all other water users. The head steward of our state's most precious resource, through a combination of education, accreditation, and expertise, should be able to perform the following: measure the flow of water through open channels and enclosed pipes, provide comprehensive water use and water level analysis and reporting, estimate the capacity of reservoirs, have a practical knowledge of irrigation crop water requirements, be able to interpret aerial photography and imagery, understand land parceling and water distribution infrastructure, and have applied knowledge of Nevada's water law and well drilling regulations. Professional engineers are the only profession that continuously are trained to satisfy these criteria. By their very nature, engineers are problem solvers, and this type of leadership is critical for Nevada and its future. I implore this committee to keep the Nevada state engineer requirements intact and vote no on SB 155. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits of 674, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Wade Polson. I am the General Manager of Lincoln County Water District. My name is spelled Wadepoulsen. I would like to thank the Chair and this committee for allowing us to provide comments in opposition to SB 155. Lincoln County Water District can appreciate the effort of this bill to attempt to gather in the best and the brightest people into the state engineer's position. We oppose the part of this bill that does not require the Nevada state engineer to be a professional engineer. Technical and scientific review is important in the process of administrating water rights. Lincoln County Water District believes in allowing science to be our guide when dealing with water resources across this state. Lincoln County Water District recognizes that there are people who could be placed into this position and could do the job effectively. However, given how politicized water can become in this state, science tends to take a back seat to the politics of the day. We are concerned that by taking away the professional engineering requirement from the Nevada state engineer position, that politics will completely take over the Nevada state engineer position, and good, solid, and sound science will be lost or pushed into the background as time goes by. Having a person with a professional engineer work under the Nevada state engineer does not necessarily mean that the science will stay at the forefront of the decision-making process when appropriating water and application reviews, as well as orders and rulings. For ultimately, it is the Nevada state engineer that will give direction and set agendas for the office. Lincoln County Water District would like to see the Nevada state engineer become more science-driven and less politically driven, and we believe that this bill, if passed, will do the opposite. This bill will drive the position into more of the political realm than the scientific realm. For these reasons, Lincoln County Water District opposes SB 155. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments in opposition to SB 155.
And just
Caller
for
with the last three digits. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Sorry, BPS. Just for clarification, Vice Chair Scheibel has gone ahead and joined this hearing. So let's go ahead and proceed with opposition testimony. Thank you, BPS.
Thank you so much, Chair. Caller with the last three digits of 851, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Jay Dixon, Jaydixon. I'm a chief hydrologist for Kinross Gold, a senior mining company operating the Round Mountain and Bald Mountain mines in Nevada. I'm also the chair of the water working group with the Nevada Mining Association. I'm a registered professional engineer, and I am testifying against SB 155 on behalf of Kinross and the Mining Association. As State engineer, as chief administrator of DWR, plays a significant role in mining industry in Nevada as it pertains to the beneficial use of water in support of our ability to extract and process minerals. As such, it is imperative that the state engineer continues to have the necessary tools and qualifications to make extremely important and oftentimes highly technical and complex water resource decisions based on the best available science. This has been true since the office was created nearly 120 years ago. The PE licensure is an important step toward ensuring the necessary technical background and compliance with certain ethical rules that are incumbent upon all regulated PEs in Nevada. Removing the PE requirement would potentially open the position up to political, agenda-driven appointments. Licensed PEs must adhere to regulated ethical standards that are directly related to the evaluation and interpretation of technical information, which can have a significant effect on public safety and resources. Water policy decisions need to be based on science and sound engineering in order to protect the public interest, not promote political agendas. In the private sector, when a company is struggling to fill and maintain positions that are considered critical to the business, the most effective mitigation tool is to improve compensation. In Nevada, it is well documented that the state engineer's position is not well aligned with the private sector as it pertains to compensation for PEs. In fact, it is readily apparent that the engineers and technical staff at DWR earn much less than comparable positions at many city and county entities in Nevada. Instead of changing the law, just fix the compensation at DWR. Thank you, Chair.
As a reminder, we are currently in opposition testimony on Senate Bill 155. Please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 662. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
This is Kyle Roerink, K-Y-L-E-R-O-E-R-I-N-K. I'm the Executive Director of the Great Basin Water Network. Chairman Donate and members of the committee, we ask you to oppose SB 155. The Great Basin Water Network has long worked within the regulatory realm at the Division of Water Resources. Never once have we found a state engineer to be unfit for office. Currently, we have a very high standard as it relates to what it takes to become the state's top water official. Section 5 in SB 155 vitiates that standard because the bill has open-ended terms and no real sideboards as currently written. We are going from a strong criteria to literally the weakest in the West as SB 155 is written. Right now, it is a guarantee that the top person in the division has a foundational basis for technically evaluating data, and that's based on their training and their testing that's required to become a professional engineer. Lawyers and hydrologists don't necessarily have that background for evaluation as it relates to the testing and training. The language in Section 5 potentially puts deputy state engineers and administrators in a precarious, uncomfortable power dynamic. We are uncertain about potential legal or ethical liabilities that this could create, but that has come up in some discussions. Please see my exhibit to further examine what our sister states are doing, but briefly I will say this: Wyoming, New Mexico, and Colorado require engineers to be the state's top water official. Utah's language requires 5 years experience as a practical engineer, or the theoretical knowledge, practical experience, and skills necessary for the position. Idaho allows for engineers, geologists, or hydrologists with strict sideboards that are required. Arizona requires an administrator to be confirmed by a state senate. Utah also requires Senate confirmation. Some of these states also require terms to be associated, which help assure that state engineers will not have to worry about making decisions that threaten their job security. So after reviewing those statutes, I feel pretty confident in saying that, we will now have the weakest standards in the Mountain West. And No, we think this is lacking sideboards, and we want to thank you.
Caller with the last three digits of 923. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair, for allowing me the opportunity to speak. This is Robert Coache, C-O-A-C-H-E. I'm a registered professional engineer with the state of Nevada. I've got over 40 years of experience in Nevada water rights with 30 years at the state engineer's office. And I've worked there as an engineer, hydrologist, and I was the first deputy engineer assigned to the Las Vegas, deputy state engineer assigned to the Las Vegas office. The requirements under Section 6 of SB 155 requires no knowledge in hydrology, hydrogeology, or any of the requirements that I've seen, needed at the state engineer's office. And it's written more as being a general manager for Southern Nevada Water Authority or the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. Additionally, you run into an ethical conundrum with a deputy state engineer being the registered PE. When the state engineer is an actual registered professional engineer, the buck stops with him. And as a deputy, whenever I was assigned to do something, ultimately the state engineer was still the responsible party. Here, you have an issue with the PE or the deputy state engineer being the responsible party for documents that could be signed and other documents that he prepared on his behalf. With 4 decades of experience with the state engineer's office and in the private sector, I do not share the director's belief that the requirement of the state engineer being a professional engineer has become outdated. In fact, it is my belief that the multidisciplinary and problem-solving education necessary to obtain licensing as a professional engineer, coupled with the ethics requirements of a professional engineer, has become even more relevant today in performing the duties of the Nevada state engineer. When the state engineer's office was created in 1903, the legislature titled the position, it created the state engineer for a reason. 117 years later, that reason remains valid today. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak. And I just want to be on the record that I adamantly oppose SB 155. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits of 792. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
This is Patrick Donnelly, Patrick Donnelly. I'm Nevada State Director with the Center for Biological Diversity. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. We're speaking today in opposition to SB 155. We heard in the presentation today, this was described as a contemporary solution. And I would say that we've seen a number of contemporary solutions being pushed by DCNR this session with regards to water, from restricting who can appeal decisions of the state engineer to excluding district courts from judicial review to a proposal for new speculative schemes like water banking. Through the legislation introduced this session, DCNR appears to be taking measures to reduce public oversight and involvement and upend state water law. Now they seek to redefine the leadership structure of the Division of Water Resources, putting extraordinary powers into the hands of an individual who may or may not be adequate to the task. Science should guide water decision-making, not politics. There's a reason this position is called the Nevada State Engineer. There's not a compelling reason to support this bill, but there are many reasons not to. If we want to fix water in Nevada, we can start by properly funding DWR and ensuring that DWR decision makers, such as the state engineer, strictly adhere to the law. A bill like this will only increase the likelihood that politics, rather than science, will guide water decision making. I would also just say take a look at the opposition to this bill. We've heard from rural counties, the mining industry, water advocates, former state engineers, and environmentalists. And a decent rule of thumb is that when DCNR is putting forward legislation that literally everyone affected by the legislation opposes, it's probably a bad bill. This is not a necessary change to state water law and should be rejected. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 666. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Warren Hardy.
Oh, my apologies, caller. Please proceed.
Sorry about that. Again, Warren, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Warren Hardy, W-A-R-R-E-N, last name Hardy, H-A-R-D-Y. Representing today the Virgin Valley Water District and the Moapa Valley Water District. I want to thank Director Crowell for chatting with me about this bill earlier. We do have concerns with the section that's been referenced with regard to removing the requirement to be an engineer, but I'm pleased to have the conversation with Director Crowell and look forward to continuing that conversation to see if we can come up with some language that is satisfactory. So thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Caller number 1, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, committee members, chair. My name is John Hatter. Last name is spelled H-A-D-D-E-R. I'm an executive director of Great Basin Resource Watch, a nonprofit organization here in Nevada that monitors and advocates for mining reform, working with communities to protect themselves from the adverse effects of mining. Certainly water is a primary aspect of mining, and there's a lot of very important technical aspects, not simple issues to resolve. And in particular, mining's use of water also has unique qualities to it. And I think that we do not see any reason for the change in the statutes as it stands. So we stand with other organizations, Great Basin Water Network, Center for Biological Diversity, many of the engineers that have spoken already in opposition to 155. We see no reason for this change, and it's important to have a skilled and experienced and technically qualified person in this position to evaluate the technical issues and aspects that come up in water management. We thank you very much for your time, and again, we stand in opposition to this bill.
As a reminder, we are currently in opposition testimony on Senate Bill 155. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in opposition, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no more callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you, DPS. And last but not least, let's go ahead and hear if there's anyone wishing to testify in neutral on the bill.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 155, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Great, thank you. I know that Vice Chair Scheibel joined us late. Do you have any questions, anything before we go to closing remarks?
I appreciate you asking me, and I would like to go back and watch the hearing first, but I'll follow up offline with the presenters if I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Scheibel. Dr. Swain, Director Crowell, do you have any last minute remarks before we close this hearing?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Donate. I just have a few comments, and then I will pass it off to Director Crowell. One of the things I wanted to address was a couple of the folks who spoke in opposition mentioned increasing the compensation for the state engineer as the fix for being able to attract more candidates. We all know that this salary is set in the unclassified pay bill. It is not something that is at the discretion of Director Kroll. And also in this time when Nevada, like every other state in the country, is going through a lot of economic turmoil as we come out of this COVID-19 pandemic, it's not really a time when we can raise those salaries, and we have another 2 years before we come back to the legislature. And those 2 years are really important for Nevada to be able to manage our water resources well. So that does not seem like a helpful critique going forward as far as just throw money at it. That's really not going to get us where we need to go. So I think I'll pass things off to Director Kroll, but we're more than happy to work with members of the committee on anything that you would like to see in the bill. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Dr. Swank, thank you for your comments and for your willingness to be at the hearing today and provide comments. Chair Donate, Brad Kroll for the record. I do appreciate the commenters who called in and provided their feedback. I'm a little dismayed that there was more red herrings and conspiracy theories thrown out there than constructive feedback about how to reach a common goal or engage in a constructive dialogue. Mr. Hardy, I do appreciate your call today and your willingness to engage, and we are obviously more than willing to do that. A few quick comments in response. One gentleman mentioned that other states use Senate confirmation to appoint their state engineer, and I would argue quite strenuously that makes the position more political, not less political. Additionally, I would ask any of the commenters who are opposed to this bill, who also are PEs, whether they would be willing to step out of whatever job they're in now and serve as the state engineer, given the responsibilities, the pay, and the other requirements. I presume the answer is no, but I would still welcome their engagement on a constructive solution. And I believe strongly in science being the guiding light for the policies we implement. But those who argue for the status quo overlook the fact that we didn't get to the place in Nevada where we are now, where we're egregiously over-appropriated and over-pumped in many of our water basins through good science. So I don't think that doing it the way we've always done it is the answer for how we should do it going forward if we want to take a responsible approach. With that being said, I welcome all interested parties on either side to engage in finding a path forward that meets the limited goals of this legislation to provide an opportunity for more technical expertise as a qualification for the administrator of the Division of Water Resources. So thank you all for your time. And Ms. Scheibel, I'd be more than happy to talk with you offline as necessary.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swink and Director Kroll, for that presentation. I don't know if there's a record for how fast water bills can be done for a hearing, but we made it under the hour. So thank you again for your time and your service. At this time, I'll go ahead and close the hearing on SB 155. Again, the committee will not be taking any action today, but it might bring it back for a future work session. Let's move back in order up to our work session. I would like to remind everyone that we will not be taking testimony at the work session. However, I may call on someone as necessary to answer any of your questions from the committee members. We will begin with SB 63, which revises provisions relating to hemp. Our policy analyst, Jennifer Rudy, will be walking us through the work session. Ms. Rudy, please proceed when you are ready.
Thank you, Chair Donate. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. As the policy analyst and a member of the LCB staff, I neither advocate for or oppose legislation. So I am just here to present the two bills up on work session today. The first is Senate Bill 63. It requires that an application for registration as a grower or handler of hemp or producer of agricultural hemp seed be submitted to the State Department of Agriculture on or before July 1 of any year. The department must collect a sample of each crop of hemp for testing before it is harvested. After the department collects such a sample, The grower or producer must harvest a crop within the period of time prescribed in certain federal regulations. The grower or producer who does not harvest a crop within that period of time must not harvest the crop before the department has collected a new sample of the crop. If a grower or producer harvests a crop before a sample has been collected by the department, then the crop is deemed to have failed the required testing and the department is prohibited from renewing the grower or producer's registration. The measure authorizes the department to refuse to issue or renew, suspend, or revoke the registration of a grower, handler, or producer who materially falsifies any information in an application for registration submitted to the department, grows, handles, or produces hemp in a manner that is inconsistent with the information submitted to the department in the approved application for registration, or fails to comply with all applicable local governmental ordinances or rules. Further, the department may refuse to issue a registration as a grower, handler, or producer to a person who has previously had such a registration refused or revoked for certain specified reasons. This bill was heard on February 25th, and if you flip past the first page in your work session document about Senate Bill 63, the next page is an amendment. Chris Resby, representing Battleborn Biologics and Western States Hemp, verbally provided an amendment at the hearing on February 25th, and he, subsequent to the hearing, provided that attached amendment. The State Department of Agriculture noted it is to be considered a friendly amendment. The proposed amendment provides that a grower shall submit a plan for the effective disposal or remediation of the crop before the department may detain, seize, or embargo the crop. Such plans for remediation must comply with certain requirements. If the grower fails to submit such a plan, then the department is authorized to detain, seize, or embargo the crop. And there were no fiscal notes on this bill. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Rudy. And just for the committee members, if you do have any questions that Ms. Rudy can't answer, we do have Ashley Jepson, who is an administrator, Plant Industry Division at the State Department of Agriculture, who can also answer any questions. Senator Goycochea, did you have a question?
Yes, just a clarification on the bill, and because we've got new text and old text. But as I read the bill, it sounds like you can have a cannabis independent testing laboratory. I know you can't for cannabis, but can you actually have them run a test on hemp and submit that to the Department of Ag and meet the requirements for the high harvest period?
For the record, Ashley Jepson, Nevada Department of Agriculture. So as the statute reads now, a private lab would have to be approved by the department in order for that to take place. So at this point in time, we're handling all the sample analysis and testing in-house.
Thank you, Ms. Jepson. So the answer then is today is no?
Yes. For the record, Ashley Jepson, yes.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Goycochea. Any last minute questions before we proceed? Okay, I don't see anyone else. At this time, seeing no questions, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to amend and do pass SB 63.
So moved, Vice Chair Scheibel.
Thank you, Vice Chair Scheibel. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second from Senator Brooks. Is there a discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the Secretary go ahead and please call the roll call vote?
Senator Brooks.
Yes.
Senator Goycochea.
Yes.
Senator Hansen.
Yes.
Senator Scheibel.
Yes.
Chair Donate.
And I am a yes. Great, thank you. The motion carries. Are there any volunteers that would like to handle the floor statement? Senator Hansen. Okay, there you go. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your help. Ms. Rudy, let's go ahead and proceed. Please proceed with SB 65, which revises provisions relating to the State Department of Agriculture.
Thank you, Chair Donate. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. Senate Bill 65 revises provisions relating to the composition and administration of the State Department of Agriculture. The measure creates 4 divisions within the State Department of Agriculture. as follows: the Division of Administrative Services, Division of Animal Industry, Division of Food and Nutrition, and Division of Plant Health and Compliance. The measure renames the Division of Consumer Equitability as the Division of Measurement Standards. The measure requires the director of the department to appoint an administrator of each of the 5 divisions who is in the unclassified service of the state and serves at the pleasure of the director. The director retains the authority to alter the organization of the department and reassign responsibilities and duties as the director deems appropriate. The measure requires the director to appoint a state veterinarian who is in the unclassified service of the state and serves at the pleasure of the director. One of the 2 minimum qualifications for the state veterinarian is revised to reduce the minimum number of years of experience from 5 to 3 years experience in regulating and controlling diseases in livestock. There are no proposed amendments for Senate Bill 65. And while there were 3 fiscal notes on this bill, all 3 of them showed 0 fiscal impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rudy, for the presentation. And we also have Director Ott, Jennifer Ott from the State Department of Agriculture to answer any questions. Do any committee members at this time have questions? Senator Goycochea.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and more of a comment than a question, although I am a little concerned about clearly the animal health piece of it and the enforcement, that administrator of the animal industry and and some of the requirements that we're looking at there, clearly because we've got some other bills pending that could impact how that particular division is going to run. But I am going to support the bill because I understand the Ag Board did, in fact, vote to support both these bills. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other last-minute questions before we proceed? Okay. At this time, seeing no more questions, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to do pass SB 65.
Move to do pass.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks. Do I have a second?
Second, Senator Goycochea.
I got a second from Senator Goycochea. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and will the secretary please proceed to call the roll call vote?
Senator Brooks.
Yes.
Senator Goycochea.
Yes.
Senator Hansen.
Yes.
Senator Scheibel.
Yes.
Chair Donate.
And I am a yes. The motion carries. I can go ahead and volunteer to do the floor statement on this one. Thank you to my committee members and Director Ott and all the presenters for today. Before we close out, let's go ahead and move on to public comment. I will now call for public comment. Please remember to limit your comments to 2 minutes. BPS staff, is there anyone wishing to provide public comment?
Thank you so much, Chair. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Let's give it 15 seconds just to make sure if anyone wants to jump in.
Certainly. Thank you, Chairs. BPS standing by. Well, thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working, and there are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much, BPS. Members, are there any last-minute comments or remarks before we move on? I don't see anything else. So again, thank you for your quick response and collaboration throughout this process. A water bill and 2 work session bills. It's a good time. So our next meeting is Tuesday, March 23rd at 3:30 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.